Okay, so we're ready to go.
Yes, we do have a quorum, so we can begin.
All right, we'll go ahead and start. And it sounds like you did some introductions at least all ready to start. I at least jumped on and heard Joe giving his introduction. So we can move on to item number 2, which is the call to the audience. And to attend the meeting by technological means, members of the public may access the link to watch a video stream on the MAG website by clicking on a link that was provided. Members of the public may also submit written comments relating to this meeting to the www.azmag.gov/comment within 1 hour of the posted start time of the meeting. Gordon, have we received any comments to this point?
I have not, no.
Okay, and if we receive any during the meeting, you'll let us know.
Yes.
So we can move on to item number 3 then, approval of the January 6th, 2021 meeting minutes. And if everyone will take a few minutes to review those. Okay, if we're ready, I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
Ryan, I make a motion to accept minutes as written.
Thank you.
I'll second. This is Warren.
Thank you, Warren. Okay, and I believe, as I recall, we need to do the roll call vote since we're doing this meeting virtually. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye, Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage, Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa's a yes, Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix. Looks like Matthew, are you on? Okay, Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe or Youngtown? Okay, going back to Phoenix one more time. Matthew's a yes via text through the chat.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the minutes are approved as noted or as sent out. Okay, moving on to item number 4, polymer manholes presentation. We'll have an overview provided by Mike Olson of Olson Concrete Structures, and we'll turn the time over to him.
All right. Well, first of all, can everyone hear me? I'd like to say thank you guys for your time. I know that I only get 15 minutes, so we sent out a couple PowerPoints. Hopefully there's been some review. Just a quick background on myself. My name is Mike Olson. I am pretty much a native Phoenician. I've been commuting back and forth between Phoenix and Vegas for the last 30 years. Cut my teeth working for my dad since I was 13 at a company you guys probably are aware of, Olson Precast of Arizona. And super excited to not be competing against them, but into this new technology called Polymer. And so that's where we're at today. We have opened up our plant located on 35th Avenue in Lower Buckeye. Super excited, state of the art, and really excited about what we're doing here. So a little bit, what I wanted to focus on was our product, and then with only 15 minutes, I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but I really feel that this just didn't happen overnight. I've been researching and looking at polymer products. I've teamed up with a couple different polymer outfits from around the country, and each one I felt at the end of the day, it was like, this isn't going to work, or they didn't have their technology down. And about 5 or 6 years ago, my division manager in Tucson started, he had met Rich Cabetta with the solid cast polymer group, and they started doing projects and selling some stuff. And slowly I met him, and I was a little bit tentative. And as I got to know Rich, and as I got to research the mix and the design and the qualities, I got pretty excited about it. And so we took the big plunge. So a little bit about our polymer. The structural data and the strength speaks for itself. We have a patented resin technology, which is a vinyl ester. It's not a polyester. Therefore, it's basically, our mix design is no less than 10% resin and 90% quartz silica. Our 4-hour break is at 8,000 pounds. Our 18-hour break is at 12,175 pounds. And our 30 days are running anywhere between 14 to a high of 17. It is really strong, really amazing stuff. And that's due to the resin technology. I was going through the 744 specs, and we can use basically any type of reinforcement media, because we have no styrene, no VOCs, no HAPs. We're an acceptable product on the green lead sheets, and this stuff is crazy strong. Our stuff can bond to, like I said, any reinforcement media. And per 744, we far exceed the AASHTO M306 H20 designs. So that's where we're at, guys. We've got all brand new equipment, all brand new forms. We can manufacture manholes anywhere from 36-inch up to 144, any size structures. We have our eye on a few projects, some larger projects that involve like tunnel segments and stuff that are looking for the type of strength that we offer with our product and our design. And with that, fire away if you guys have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Mike, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned right at the beginning of your presentation that you had gone to or talked to multiple other companies involved with the same type of product, but that you weren't satisfied with any of those. What were some of the drawbacks that you're seeing? What were your concerns?
So some of the concerns I had were the fact that they had a mix design, but they had no clue how to keep it consistent. And the stuff sets off. You've got to, with your catalyst and everything, you've got to really have the right mix, whether you're trying to retard the product or whatever, to get the pouring down. So about 7 years ago, we were working with a group from Iowa, and we almost lost we tried to do it in our plant just to test it, and we almost lost our whole plant in Las Vegas because they just didn't have the technology. The thing that we have with SCP and is the fact that they've been doing this for over 30 years, and the mix is outstanding. And the other group that we were working with, their mix was real inconsistent as well. And that's been the two things, is just the inconsistency, because this stuff, once it fires off, I'm telling you, Ryan, it's crazy. And you can lose equipment, forms, all types of stuff if you don't have the consistent mix design like Rich is provided with us. And that's who we're licensed with, and that's kind of our engineering partner. Yeah,
so a thought on that. As we look to incorporate items into the MAG standard details and specifications, one of the things that we're always looking for is if the product is widely available, if it's something that multiple companies are able to provide, so that we don't end up in a sole sourcing type of situation. And I guess part of my concern, what I'm hearing, is that there's not other companies potentially that do this right or do it well. So if we were to put something into MAG, are we limiting ourselves, or are we opening ourselves up to an inferior product that doesn't work the way we anticipate? So those would be a couple of the challenges that we'd need to work through as we try to incorporate things into MAG. Do you have
Well,
any comments on that?
Yeah, you already have two pretty good suppliers. I mean, you've got US Composites and Armor Rock. They've seem to have a pretty proven methodology or anything. So I don't think it's sole sourced, as Palmer's, in the specs, and we're seeing more and more of it. That's three different companies competing, in the same market right there, Ryan. So, yeah, in fact, one of the main reasons that we went down the Palmer road is one of our competitors has done a really good job of marketing it. Let's face it, Palmer is basically a lifetime guarantee product for sewer systems, which, in the long run is going to save a lot of money when it comes to rehab. We were getting boxed out of not being able to, I feel like my company is the best in the business when it comes to coating. We use a poly resin in Vegas called Warren, but I understand there's been so many failures because there's so many applicators or people cutting corners or not doing it right, or it's up to the guy in the field spraying, that with all the failures that's been experienced across the Southwest and across the country as far as that goes, that the polymer really gives a kind of a proven kind of like no-brainer. We're not going to fail. So I kind of had to get into it because I was seeing a large portion of our market share evaporate in what we do. And so that's where we're at today, Ryan.
Thank you for your response there. I appreciate your comments, and I think that helps me a little bit to understand. Any other questions or comments from other members of the committee?
Hey Ryan, it's Craig out in Buckeye.
All
I've
right.
finally been able to get on. I've been struggling anyways. Jim or Mike, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I was talking with Jerry the other day about this, and when you guys are creating, you build your precast manhole bases, is that correct?
Yes. So we would pour the shaft, we would core on our coring machine, set the electronics to get the right invert, and then we do the invert after that.
Okay, so when you core through those barrel sections, obviously you use steel reinforcing. What do you do to protect the steel from obviously corrosion? Because it's going to be getting into a pretty hazardous environment.
So where we're coring, first of all, we can use hole formers. So we're going to have a 2-inch minimum clearance with our cage to begin with. So it's not even going to be an issue. So hole formers eliminated on the larger size. On the smaller size where we're coring, all our forms are lined up. So we can spin our mandrels. We've got especially mandrels that we can roll, and they've got the dog houses at the exact coordinates where they go through. So again, you may have anywhere from 2 inches to 6 inches clearance, depending on the pipe size. And really, Craig, our structural calcs, when you guys see them on a per job basis, we don't even need to put reinforcement. This stuff is crazy. You'll see all our data. But the main reason that we put any type of reinforcement in is strictly for handling purposes. So, and our calcs will blow some of you guys away. This is strong stuff.
Okay, so basically, when you're gonna core through that, you've already planned for all your reinforcing to not even be near where you're going to be coring.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know. I'm kind of flustered right now, trying to get into this and just not being able to. So, give me a second to kind of think of some questions. No, I like the idea of polymer, because polymer, it's we've been doing a lot of rehab on manholes that are falling apart, and if this can help that, then I think this is going to be a win for the entire area.
One thing I'd like to say to everyone on this call, even you, Paul, is we are an open shop, open door facility. You guys at any time have an open invite. We'd love, I know we're all COVID concerned right now, but once, more people are vaccinated and everyone's feeling a little safer, and some of you may feel safe right now. I don't know if you've got the edicts from the different jurisdictions to not be able to go see people, but we'd love to show you what we've built, what we've done. And we're really excited about it. We're located right across the street from Olson Precast of Arizona. In fact, they're gonna be probably one of the main people that we're using to, because we're gonna, our whole marketing plan is the whole setting and everything through them. We don't need to duplicate the construction services. I couldn't really compete against my family like that. So we've been educating them on the setting, whether it's with the ram neck or the resin grout or whatever is going to be required, and training some of their guys. So we're real excited about it. And some of the things we've done a little differently because of the background being in construction and, pouring manholes for my dad when I was literally 14 years old. And Paul Nebeker can tell you that's the truth. But I, our joint, we put the female piece on the bottom. It does two things. It allows them for our impression ring. If we pour onto a regular concrete base, you're not trying to flap a female piece and get it perfect, and you leave a little gap at the bottom. Also, when you're setting it, you can take whether it's whatever the requirement is. If it's resin grout, if it's ram neck or any type of joint sealant, it sits in there almost like a mortar joint. So all you're doing is you're putting the male piece down on it. So I think we're gonna, you're not just getting a white little paste on the inside. So I think we're pretty excited about the product and ready to show it off to all you guys. So
I guess one more question. It's Craig again out in Buckeye. One more question on your cast in place. You do cast in place, is that correct?
we do, but we're going to be doing our cast in place projects through Olson Precast of Arizona. I can't compete against my family. So we're going to let them do the cast in place and we'll supply them the polymer.
Okay, so it sounds like you'll be planning on doing more of the precast structures and they'll be doing the cast in place structures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So wherever you have a poured in place base with polymer and then a base, we'll just supply the shafting. They'll set it, they'll do everything. And on the precast stuff, we'll take it out to the contractor. Our plan is to set the base because that's some of these, if there's contractors on this phone call, they know if I've got a big 72-inch base with 36-inch holes in it, dropping it off a truck, that's great. But if you've got to take a D9 or something and walk it over and set it down, when that thing could maybe be 2 hours of digging main line, we're gonna set it. They're gonna call us when it's good to go, and then we're gonna come back and let Olson Precast set the rest of the shafting on that. So that's kind of our game plan.
Okay.
But as a note, if I can chime in, as a contractor, we like setting our own bases, man.
Perfect. I got you covered, Paul.
Right. Thank you.
So Mike, this is Jeff Hearn. I just wanted to try to get a feel for cost difference between, cast concrete bases and this product. And I don't want to get into minute numbers, but is it about the same? Is it twice as much? Is it 20% more? Just some idea.
So depending on what type of coating that you require to go onto a cast in place concrete base, that's the big. So I'm going to just say if it was worn epoxy, or maybe if it was sourizing, they're close with labor. The polymer base is going to be a little bit more money. Dak, I'll defer to you. You've been doing most of our bidding.
Yes, slightly higher. A 20-foot manhole coated compared to polymer, concrete coated compared to polymer is a base only. Okay. Polymer would be slightly higher than a coated base.
Percentage wise?
15. It's not a lot. It's small. Yeah, not a big difference, guys.
Great, thank you.
Again, that also depends on what spec you're requiring and what the coating system is.
So Mike, on that same, go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Warren. How would the cost comparison between a cast in place be to a regular cast in place concrete?
Well, you're not going to cast in place polymer for sure. You're going to cast in place ready mix. I don't think that there is technology in Canada, but man, it is like, that stuff just sets off way too fast. So it's either going to be a precast polymer base and where you have like a connection point or something. And so it needs to go cast in place, and you're going to coat that and then set the balance with polymer.
Thank you.
Craig, you look like a DJ there, man, with your background.
I'm telling you, I'm still a little, honestly, I'm still a little flustered just trying to fight technology. So, but no, I really appreciate it, Mike. I've been playing with manholes on the MAG committee now for a number of years, the precast bases and the polymer bases and all that, and it's. I honestly feel from my perspective that it's definitely an up and coming technology that I think some of the cities in the valley are going to start taking on to, and I think it's only going to help us. As you said, costs are there are a little more expensive, but I think once you do the cost comparison over time, I'm in my opinion, again, I'm just going to speak for me. I don't think there's comparison.
I would agree, unless I was trying to sell a precast concrete job. No, I'm just kidding.
So I appreciate you guys coming out. And again, I apologize for being so late.
Well, I want to thank all you guys and thank you for your time, and look forward to any of you guys. You can reach out to our GM, Doug McLaughlin, or me direct. I think everything's on that PowerPoint that we had sent out to you guys. If you guys would love to come by, get a tour and get a nice golf shirt, well, come on over. We'd love to. We just want to show it off to everybody.
Hey, Mike, I'll be over to get my free shirt. Don't worry.
You got it, Paul. All right, brother. Hey, thank you guys. And I guess this is where we'll be leaving you guys to do all your other stuff.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Gordon, do you happen to have the agenda? Gordon, are you still there? Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I was muted, but I did hear you. So we just left off with his presentation and we're on the cases for this year.
Okay, starting on number 5 right here.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess moving down to number 5, cases 2101, the miscellaneous corrections. So we've got a change on there in section 430.9 from plan to plant, section 415 for flexible metal guardrail from the county standards, and a new letter C, which is the detail 321 standard water meter vault. Warren and Carl were kind of looking at that one. Warren, do you want to talk about it at all?
Yes, thank you, Craig. This was one on Gordon's list as a miscellaneous correction. Since we removed, a couple years ago, we removed the detail C3 or the 313 detail, which was the cast iron heavy box cover, obviously, so it had the access port as well. This detail could simply just replace the 14 with 310 or 315, and we may be good. Specifying the larger number 4. Didn't seem like we could also use the traffic rated because the box is part of that. So that could be a quick fix on this. What I don't think is, from what I can tell, at least in Chandler and some other agencies, most seem to use more of a hatch cover type of setup versus the box covers like this, but that's open for discussion. And that's the next one's down in the list there Gordon was going to click on. So for the larger meter vaults, agencies have similar details, it looks like, where They actually specify the vault dimensions. Maybe it's cast in place or a precast type of vault setup. And then they have a special type of a lid that may be a non-slamming type of lid, things like that. So that could be another case down the road for us to discuss in water and sewer maybe. You can see here on the Chandler detail, we specify note number 5 says meter hatch per EJ group style pedestrian rated. So we may have two types of hatch, generic hatch details potentially for a pedestrian rated or traffic rated with the slam lock, something like that. But again, that we may want to talk more in water and sewer if that's more or less the standard out there. And I haven't looked at all agencies or anything.
Okay. I'm assuming most of these hatches or lids or whatever you want to call them have like a spring assist on them. Is that one of the standards?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are we just talking about the lids, guys, or the whole vault itself?
The lids, but the vault, again, if we wanted to discuss standard vault dimensions, that could be a topic in water and sewer if we thought that would be helpful.
Yeah, we've looked at these and we've had to modify a lot of our jobs. We end up with custom designs because the way the plumbing is, like for PRVs, you know, if you have a large PRV vault, there's more plumbing involved, and some of these, like the mag ones, don't work, so you got to come up with your own. So I don't know, it's a tough one to come up with a general standard. Maybe we could do it where we have some items that are standard and then the sizes, you know, can be variable.
And that's
I mean,
what this vault dimension table on the Chandler one, I think Scottsdale may have that too, where based on the size of the meter, it determines the size of the vault.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
I remember it's probably been 10 years ago when we did this, but they were building these massive vaults out there that people could say you could live in. So then we scaled them down to be more appropriate for the meter size, and not too small, of course, because you got to get down there and work in it. But anyway, that's something we can talk more about it.
Okay. Thank you, Warren. Yeah, I know Buckeye, we're trying to get away from the underground vaults, confined space issues and whatnot. So, but in terms of the lids, yeah, we can definitely discuss that a little bit more in the water and sewer working group. So again, thank you.
For the miscellaneous corrections case, you're just looking at replacing the lids though on this first sheet, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, okay, moving on. Number 6, case 21-02, update detail 110-2. Plan symbology, Carl?
Yeah, this is a request from our CAD group. The jurisdictional boundary, the current one right now, is pretty thick and pretty solid, and it obscures important information. We'd like to make it more transparent and not as thick. That's really the whole change. Really, that's it. I don't know if there's any questions on that or not.
Did you have like an example that, or are you guys still kind of working on that? Or
You're looking at the example now. I'm sorry, I don't have an existing one maybe to compare it to.
Okay, I just see it's grayed back a little bit. The option 1, option 2 is a little more bold.
Yeah, I don't think option 2 changed.
Okay.
Look here.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. So, anybody else have questions? Okay. We can move on, Gordon, to the.
Yeah, actually, the both the existing ones now, option one is a really thick, solid dark line, and that the option two is just about as thick and grayed back a little bit. We'd like to go to a lot thinner and for option one, a more transparent type of line type.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Carl. Gordon, if we could go back to the agenda real quick. So moving on to item number 7, case 21-03, update to detail 212. This is the pothole repair detail we've been working on for a while. Jim, do you have an update on that?
Yeah. I think you see in front of you the detail, the highlights. Those are the things you wanted to add or change.
I think one of the big things in the last meeting we had from Arvid was that section AA on the right side there. Originally, it actually showed the hole going all the way through, and Arvid pointed out that that's not necessarily the case, and so we cut off part of that hole, and it just is a small area now.
Yeah, right. And then he was saying that we don't need some I guess drill rigs don't need a pilot hole apparently. So so that may or may not pilot hole may not be needed.
Right.
So that's why that's an option there.
Yeah, he says depending on the Vector truck, it just might be able to pull it right out of the hole without the pilot hole.
Right.
So.
Then the item or on type A there, the item 5, you want to repair the cracks or sock cut overcut.
Right. So
I mean, we talked about it a lot. I know the materials group came up with some alternate materials. So, I think we've got a pretty good setup here with these. We're trying to push more towards the keyhole one, the type B. I think, once some of these contractors, SUV companies get up to speed on it, then I think you'll see more of that because it's actually probably cheaper. I mean, you're in and out. You don't have to keep making multiple trips to patch the other ones. There's not necessarily a worry about settlement. That's our big problem is these things settle. And then just getting the contractors back to take out the temporary patching and do a permanent repair. So, but we wanted to leave the type A in because, there are a lot of projects that, the area that they're potholing is going to be reopened up, during construction, like for design purposes. So the initial potholes for design, and then actually when they do the bore, they have to open it back up so that you can visually see it. So that's why we because there was talk about removing type A completely, but I think the consensus was to leave it in because there's a purpose for that type A. And then, a project that may repave the whole street, and you don't need to spend the money on a more expensive patch or the type B. So that's why I think we still need to have both in play here. So
with type A being more of a temporary situation for design purposes and the type B for more of a permanent situation, right?
Right. So I don't know, we'll talk some more about it at the utility or the water and sewer working group, but I like to maybe add some language about, temporary use or what can be used for temporary, So when a contractor is referenced to this detail, he said, well, I'm just it's a temporary setup, then maybe he can be kind of directed to go to the section or the type A. So anyways, anybody have any discussion on this?
Jim, that reminds me, did we talk about maybe revising that section AA, since like you said, it's for temporary situations and it may have plating and so on. Did we talk about doing an edge mill on there or referencing that edge mill around there to accommodate that plating?
On the type A?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We talked about, basically just coming and milling it, do an initial saw cut and then coming back and milling it, maybe 6 inches or a foot larger on each side. So say you got a 12 by 12, the final repair would be maybe a 2 by 2. That maybe we could add that as another option too.
Okay.
Is that what you're implying, Warren?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we just wanted to get it before the main committee and see if anybody had any additional comments.
And actually, even with that edge mill, whether with or without the plating, it prevents that edge from easily allowing water to penetrate the subgrade, right?
Yes. I don't know. I'd like to ask everybody. I haven't seen a whole lot of plating for these, the small plates, because I think there's a danger that they can fly out.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely uncommon, right? As it relates to a plate that size. If it were something that small, right? If we were to protect it, right, it would be a cold mix and a temporary solution prior to coming back for the permanent repair, right? A plate that small is just something that we wouldn't use in the roadway, nor the availability really there.
Yeah, it's not typical. You're right, Joe. I don't see it too often. If it's temporary, they usually just put the native back in there. They just put the native back in there and just cold patch it back and then come back and then, when they're done with it for permanent repair, then suck all that native out and then put in AB or a CLSM and then patch it.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of times, right? I mean, I see the whole size there. I mean, in an ideal world, that utility would be able to be found in there sometimes, right? That size of that hole is growing if we're trying to chase a utility that's kind of not technically where it's supposed to be. And if there's a cluster of them there in a certain group, to where then we would get to a manageable size to kind of get that location repaired accordingly. More often than not, right, when we're going through potholing, like in a design phase, pre-con phase, or whatever it may be, that roadway section is getting repaired. So, prior to that happening, project being complete, it would just be encompassed under, a full roadway build. But in the temporary solution, we've done is just all based on time, right? If it's something that's going to be a couple days or something, it'd be cold mix. And, if it's where traffic's going in a phasing situation or whatever it may be for extended period of time, we have some hot mix out there to get a bunch of those repaired at the same time, just to make sure it doesn't turn into a traffic impact or long-term maintenance issue while the project's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of your comments, Joe, is that 1 by 1 on the type A might actually grow to 2 by 2 or larger.
Yeah, depending on if it's a duct bank or, depth of utility. I mean, typically when we're potholing, and there may be some type of bank, we like to find edge to edge and typically top to bottom, just so we know exactly, what type of potential conflicts there would be, or just that information related to design. So, typically I'd say that 1 by 1 would be sufficient, but, there are situations where that grows just based upon what's needed to identify the entire utility, and or if it's off its blue stake location or as built information. I think that's a good start and something that would fall outside of those dimensions. We can coordinate an associated repair that may incorporate an edge mill or something like that for a larger area.
Okay. Have you guys ever done an edge mill on these the type A repairs?
No, not typically that small. You know, I mean, it likely wouldn't be a problem depending on how thick and what condition the asphalt's in. I mean, we just use a small milling machine attachment on a skid steer or something like that. I mean, definitely would drive costs up because that's just another step, another piece of equipment, right? And some things that need to be done on sometimes a large amount of potholes depending on the size of the job. So that's just one thing to consider. You know, more often than not, right, the potholes that are done though accompany a full roadway replacement in an ideal situation, or is in line with a trench repair, depending on what that is. So if it's something that's a kind of one offer, I think that it probably wouldn't hurt to explore that, but that's just something that increased costs accordingly. Just with that operation of an edge mill around that, you figure you got a 1x1 hole. Typically, you would edge mill with a milling machine like that, a minimum of a 1 foot edge mill in addition to that. And just, it's definitely a very small area, right? Based on the size of the even a smaller piece of equipment that would be performing that work. So whether or not that the ends would justify the means there, something that would need to be determined.
That's true. You know, one thing I like to add on this is that, you know, the one of the reasons we're looking at this, Joe, and everybody, is that, you know, there's just too many of these are failing, and so the idea was, well, we got to beef up the type A, and you know, with the thought maybe, you know, hopefully we can get more companies to go to the type B. You know, because if you say, I know cost is a factor, but if it gets too, you know, the problem is they're failing. And so we've got to, you know, look at the spec and maybe see where we need to improve upon it. And then that's why the type B is something I think agencies are pushing more for. We've talked about it in Avondale about, you know, start to require it, even for temporary, because then you're in and out. So
yeah.
And the other thing too, I mean, a lot of potholes now, guys, are being done by the dry utility companies, you know, the cable companies, fiber companies. And so all they're doing is they're boring and they're not coming back. So yeah, I know if you're doing a water line or whatever, yeah, you're going to come back and do a trench replacement or a complete replacement or a mill and overlay on the street. But a lot of, you know, I think the majority of these potholes are being done by the horizontal drilling companies that are working with dry utilities, and you know they bore their utility in, and then they're gone. So that's the issue, is that, you know, their potholes are permanent.
No,
their repairs are permanent. So that's what we've got to do.
That's a great point. I mean, right? You know, bore shots and everything. I mean, they're going to pothole, and I mean, I don't know how often or not it's inspected related to that pothole prior to even putting the asphalt patch back on it. You know, in my eyes, that always tends to be a large piece of it, of how, you know, whether they're using some slurry or self-compacting material in that hole prior to that final pavement plug going in.
But that's our biggest, you know, by far, that's our biggest problem with these repairs failing. It's the dry utility companies that aren't repairing them properly. And so I think that was the onus behind on you know, making this a little bit more stringent, so that they're going to have to adhere to it. You know, the stuff that city CIP projects for pipelines and other stuff hasn't really been an issue, because like you said, the stuff gets replaced completely anyways. So it's mainly the dry utility companies that are the culprits in this.
So
anyways, I don't have any more comments. If anybody doesn't have anything else, we can move on. So.
Okay. Well, good discussion. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Moving on, unless anybody has any other comments, to item number 8. Case 2104, it's update to detail 422, a new detail 422-1. Corrosion protective manhole frame and cover adjustments. Warren?
I know we've talked about this for a couple of years now in MAG, and I think we've probably seen presentations on the new types of adjustment rings in water sewer, maybe in the committee, I can't remember, on the polypropylene and the HDPE rings. And Chandler's had a detail in place for a couple of years now. So this detail proposing is a revision to detail 422, keeping, of course, the concrete rings that have been in place forever, and adding a second page for the type B adjustment for the alternative types of rings, polypropylene and the HDPE. So going back to page 1, though, let's just talk about that. So again, this detail is for the most part the same. The only changes to this detail are, as said, adding type A, and then in the bottom section, expanded it a bit to show the cone section, and over on the right, adding that a dimension that's been missing on this that states the 12-inch minimum, 18-inch max for adjustment rings. I'm sure we've all had instances where we've done CIP projects and we find that there is no adjustment left to make, or there's too much, or you end up with a flat top manhole where you didn't plan on it, that type of scenario. So I think that's a helpful addition on here. And then the other change is in the notes, the note number 3 did say manhole coatings per agency. Now I changed it to say per section 626, which is our new corrosion coating spec, non-corrosive. What is the title, Jim? The new section 626 for all the different coatings. So that's the only change on this one. So we can go to page 2. Well, any questions here on page 1?
Yeah, I was just looking while you're talking about that, where we'd missed that 12-inch minimum, 18-inch maximum, and I thought for sure it was in there. It's on the 420-1 detail. So
Right.
This is definitely a better location for that. So
Great. Okay. And so this is the new page 2 for the type B. As you can see, there are definitely more notes required for these types of rings because, number one, there's no grouting between the rings, no spacers, no nothing between those rings. Basically, you use the types of rings needed, spacer rings, slope rings, to make up the grade, so on, and that's stated in those notes. There is adhesive that you apply for the manufacturer to between the rings, and of course the frame and cover to the top ring and at the cone. There are situations where you may need to use mortar to smooth or level a rough cone section, and possibly even on some of the other manhole, the fiberglass manhole manufacturers recommend that too. Obviously, the trick with that mortar is not to put too much, and it needs to be a high strength.
would it be just a mortar, Warren, or would there be like I'm thinking a Ramneck, a butyl rope, rubber mastic rope, or something like that that could go between the concrete and we'll call these ones the HDPE or adjustment rings.
And in a lot of cases that might work, but the field situations and recommendations from the manufacturer is that a lot of times those cones may be just plain rough, and even a butyl rubber rope is not adequate. You have to apply some material there to get it to a smooth enough surface, even to put your mastic rope on it.
Okay. Okay.
So we can talk through the notes, but yeah, so if you'd like, but I'll let you read them and we can talk about them more after everyone's had a chance to look through it all. I noticed on note number 7, that one needs to be updated. Corrosion protective coating per agency list of approved products shall be applied to all exposed mortar. The new section 626 states that same thing, I think, per agency list of approved products. So we might be able to revise that note 7 with some discussion.
Okay. No, this is good. This is good. This would go along with the corrosion resistant manholes.
Yeah.
So excellent. Thank you, Warren. Any other questions?
Pretty soon I'll have a manhole that'll last 100 years.
Yeah.
And our budgets will go through the roof, right? Is that something that's we'll never have to come back and fix any of these things. So all right, moving on. New and potential cases. Anybody have anything that's up and coming that they're talking about possibly submitting for case? Not really hearing anything. I'm going to move on down to item number 10, working group reports. Water and sewer. Jim.
All right. So yeah, we met on the 19th. We had a discussion about the bloopers. Oh, Gordon, we had some discussion about ASTM references, I believe.
Sorry. Yeah, we reviewed that sheet of some of the details that need to have ASTMs updated. And then I think there was also some discussion about, well, I think one of Warren's bloopers came out of that discussion, but
Right.
there are some others that might need to be take a look at.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a heads up to anybody. When you guys are reading these things, and if it looks like it's an old spec or, you know, check, if you got time and access to the ASTMs, check it, because I've done that a couple times. It's like, what is this doing in here? So you never know. I know they take forever to update, but you know, the mag's been around for a long time too. So I think sometimes there are things get changed and we don't know about it. So the only way we can check it, I think, is to go through when we're dealing with certain sections. So then we had a quick discussion because I was asking about the status of that ADEQ update to bulletin 10. We had a little bit of confusion, but I think Craig, you straightened that out, right?
Yeah, I think where the confusion would come from is it was the 5-year rule that came out that everybody was kind of talking about, that was asking for comments by, I believe it was the end of the month. But it didn't have anything to do with what we are actually dealing with here with MAG for that Title 18 revision. So I think we're still on track. I know that John Hunt, I'm not sure if he's here on the call or not, but I know that they are still definitely working with it. So we can keep bringing it up and work with them and push it through and get everything updated.
Good. Then we item 4, we talked about the utility pothole repair, detail 212 we talked about earlier. We don't need to talk about that anymore here. And then we had the one case we're working on, upcoming case will be this minimum compaction density frequency requirements. So Rob Godwin from Avondale, he's working on that. He's also reached out to a couple other of the geotech labs. So hopefully we can get going on this. We had some really good feedback from Brian Gallimore as well too. So I think we're getting traction now on this. The hard part's just going to be picking the frequency. So, we might, be more conservative, maybe closer to what Phoenix does. Phoenix is pretty stringent, with the option where the inspector can relax something if the contractor is getting, good passing results. So we just want to get something that's a baseline that'll also help contractors bid jobs and sub-consultants bid jobs. So you might see that in the next couple of months come to the main committee here. So that might be one of your new cases, Craig. Then we've got another one. We've got item 6. We're looking at updating section 611 with the potable water hauling requirements. We're pretty much just going to kind of take what is in the Arizona Administrative Code and just put that in here because there are sometimes some small jobs and contractors are using water hauling trucks, water hauling wagons, they call them. So we want to make sure that they're being used in accordance with the state statute. So that's just going to be a small spec that'll be inserted in 611. Then other new cases I'm working on is a modification of the wet barrel fire hydrant detail 360-2. That might be the one, that might be the spec that only we're using. I understand, Dan, that Peoria may get away from using that wet barrel.
Yeah, our water services guys have asked us to stop using those and requiring those on the development CIP side. We've got a number of them in the city, so probably through attrition they'll be changed out.
Oh, all right. Did you have any feedback with the fire department people?
No, I think they supported it. Our water services folks actually took the lead and coordinated that effort.
Okay. Anyways, that will be coming. And a result of that, we may end up modifying both details, the dry and the wet. I know a lot of contractors use those grade locks. Paul, you're aware of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, because it's a lot. I've talked to a couple other agency people and it's the same thing. Sometimes these adjustments are a real hassle. So anything that makes it easier for the contractor, and I think these grade locks are pretty widely accepted and used as an industry standard. So we might want to update both the specs with that in there. So,
if you're doing a 12-inch water line down a major arterial and you're really deep, you can go over to the curb deep and then jump it up with the grade lock and be right where you're at grade without any flexing of the pipe, and that's why they're so useful.
Yeah, I like them. So I might want to try to put those in there. So we might see a modification to both the 360-1 and 2. We had another discussion about maybe testing, having another section in 611 for force main testing. I think currently most people on the force mains, correct me if I'm wrong, don't you guys use like a 200 PSI? Or we just use a water spec for pressure testing?
I found it all over the map, Jim, when I've done it. I mean, from plumbing code being used to 100 PSI to engineering to 200 to, it's all over the map because it doesn't seem like anybody really knows what it should be.
Well, that's one reason I think we want to add something to MAG on that, because when we've tried to use the 200, we've got pushback from even the design engineers saying that's overkill.
Well, right, it doesn't run at 200 ever.
Right, so that's why I think we're going to come up with something just for force mains, and then it'll be a reduced pressure test. I think they still should be tested with a pressure test, but it doesn't need to be 200, that's for sure. So. We had another one. Stu Waller brought up about changing HDPE nomenclature to thermoplastic pipe.
Is that a brand name thing?
You know, it could be. I don't know. Not really.
No, I mean, HDPE, is that a brand name?
No, shouldn't be.
No? Oh, okay. I don't know.
I
I
think
think
it's
what it-
more. I think it's more classifying. HDPE is a number of different thermoplastic pipes, and I think that's why they want to. He wants to change that. So.
Yeah, that was what he was talking about. Is there's HDPE, there's polypropylene PP pipe, um, and it's all a thermoplastic. And I think that's where the direction of this comment was going to, is instead of saying an HDPE and a PP and whatever other types of pipe come out in the next few years, we'll just go to a thermoplastic, which is kind of all inclusive.
You're right, because there's different pipe available
Right.
Well,
other than HDPE.
if you recall, in 611, we called them rigid or flexible pipes, right? So, the two
Yeah,
different
610.
classes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or 610, sorry.
So yeah, and I don't know. We talked about maybe making it a blooper, but I don't know. I think maybe we'll make it a case because I think it might involve other changes. I'm not sure. So
When we change that, I bet it's changed since we changed that.
anyways, so then Warren, you had a discussion about water valves, manholes falling into medians. You wanted to maybe address that with a spec or detail?
Yeah, I provided a example detail for the group to consider if they wanted to incorporate that into MAG, or as Craig said, we try to not do that, but there are situations where it does come up, where if we felt that that would be helpful in MAG, I would be happy to introduce a case for it.
I think it'd be helpful in MAG. Do you know how many nightmares I've had over that? I've dug up hundreds of feet of water line to move them 6 inches to get a valve out of the dang gutter. So with the things we have now, I don't know why you can't put one in the gutter if you have to. But that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does come up. It does come up frequently. You're right. And the problem is contractors say, well, how do you want to do it? So it would probably be a good idea maybe to have a detail.
I mean, in new design, it's probably not acceptable, but for retrofitting and stuff, it ought to be there.
Yeah.
Well, and the designer knows to rotate the manhole cone to avoid it. But when you're in the field, sometimes you're left with no other option, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also the
Right.
challenge when you're in the field, is you don't necessarily sometimes know where the curb's located. So
Good point.
You couldn't do. You know? When
Right.
you're putting the underground in, we don't know where the curb is, or I mean, we're using engineering and sticks and stakes and points, and then they come back in and they're 6 inches off. I mean, it's happened to me many times. So a lot of
So
errors.
it's something good to consider. So we may want to do that. The other one we talked about last year was incorporating the City of Phoenix detail P1569 catch basin. So I don't know who's going to take the lead on that. I think we shouldn't take too much drafting to do that.
yeah, Dan and I talked about it, and I think I'll probably go ahead and take the lead on it. I just got to get some time to do it. That's my biggest challenge right now. But yeah, I'll work on taking care of that.
All right, but yeah, so you'll see, we'll probably see that this year then, right, Craig? You think?
I'm going to try to. Absolutely, yes.
All right, because I know everybody
Craig.
uses it. So.
Craig, if you want to give me a call, we can set up an internal offline meeting to discuss any issues. Our traffic guys would like to talk to you about it first.
Okay. What I think I will probably try to do is I'll get a hold of Gordon, get the border for the mag detail.
Okay.
And currently we use a very close rendition of that detail from Phoenix. I can just copy and paste the line work into the border.
Very good. All right.
And from there we can have a discussion.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim, for letting me interrupt.
No problem. Thanks, Dan, for your help, as
Yes.
always. And then our next meeting will be February 16th at 1:30. So we had a good turnout last time. So it's this online, I think, is people like it. So that's good. As long as we get good participation.
Not everybody.
Well, that's true. Not everybody. Not everybody has a beard like you either, Paul. Oh. All right, but thanks, guys. That's it, Craig.
Thank you, Jim. Moving on to asphalt materials, concrete working groups. Greg, Brian, Jeff.
Well, we did not have a meeting last month. It was canceled because we didn't really have anything to discuss, but we do plan on meeting on February 18th at noon. It'll be a virtual meeting. We have a couple of things that several of the members are trying to flesh out. I think it's not ready for prime time yet, but to see if we want to bring them forward as a MAG case or not. So that's it. So there's really no report.
When's your next one, Jeff?
February 18th at noon. Third Thursday at noon.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Outside of right of way, Peter, are you on?
I don't think he is on. I did attend that meeting, and one of the things that we talked about was perhaps getting together a few of the cases that they've been working on, including bioswales, curb cuts, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but basically put together, 2 or 3 cases and just kind of send it to this group to kind of review what they're working on and to get some suggestions on how it might be compiled into an outside right-of-way book or how it should be numbered. Just kind of give you an idea of what they're doing before it becomes an actual case at MAG. And then another thing they talked quite a bit about was the landscaping and irrigation working group that's coming together. And that group has met a couple times already. And the last meeting was kind of organizing all the people who volunteered into different subgroups to tackle each of the sections: the landscaping, the irrigation, the sprinklers, the topsoils, and so on. So they're going to be working on updating those specs for us. And I'm trying to remember, I think his name is Wayne Colebank. Anyway, they're hosting a SharePoint server where all the documents can be hosted and reviewed and updated. There's a pretty good group of probably, 30 people or so that are interested in helping. So that's getting started and on its way.
Okay. Thanks, Gordon. Any update on the City of Phoenix supplement to MAG? Not hearing any.
I haven't attended any this year yet, so I'm not sure if they've started them back up yet.
Okay. Oh, one question outside of right away, Peter. When's the next working group meeting? Or sorry, Gordon.
Let's just check here real quick. The next outside right away meeting. I think I posted it. Maybe I haven't posted it yet. I think it's, let me check my calendar here. I'll have to check back with you. I'm sure that they set a date, but I don't think I have it on my calendar yet.
Okay.
I'll have to check the notes from that meeting.
Okay, that works. Other than that, I guess we'll move on. Item number 11, or are we done? General discussion. Do we have any general discussion? Construction or new technologies that are out there that we maybe want to talk about?
I had a comment, Craig, or think about. I guess from the planning people, there seems to be an interest in LID specs for, LID improvements. Is there any thought to maybe creating a section or something where we could house those in?
That's a lot of what the outside right-of-way working group is currently working on.
That's true. That's true. So
yeah, most of the people that are involved in that actually came from the LID handbook, and they want to keep working on some of those details and specs that they prepared and see where they fit as to whether they fit in the MAG blue book or if they fit into an outside right-of-way book. And so that's, I think, part of what Peter is hoping to get some feedback on with these draft cases is where they should go in MAG. And maybe it's a separate LID document rather than an outside right-of-way. I don't think.
Yeah, because I think some of them are going to end up in the right of way. Like the pervious pavement, pervious concrete, curb openings. There's some of them, could be in the right of way. So I don't know. I just don't know, where are we going to, I guess we'll figure out where to house them. So maybe they'll go in both. I don't know. But some of the technologies can be used in the right of way. So
I think that's kind of where they were going with it is the ones that would work in the right of way, would like to put in the MAG book because that gives it further distribution and more likely to be used. But there are lots of examples that aren't really appropriate for the right of way, so they might fit in the outside right of way.
Right.
I've heard our staff say that the LID is for private development. And I keep telling them, no, there's those pieces that fit into the right of way. So they're concerned that there's nothing in the MAG spec book or detailed book that gives them that option to use it in the right of way.
And I agree, Dan. We need to make sure we draw that line carefully because I think we've talked about before. Most of us adopted that titled manual, the specs and details manuals. And then we may or may not choose to adopt the outside right of way if it's purely for our on-site, right?
Yes.
For developers, yeah, that kind of thing.
And another thing that they're doing the outside right of way group as they're reviewing these LID details is trying to make them more construction friendly rather than a lot of them have more design aspects in them rather than just construction specs. So they're trying to take and just kind of condense it to just the construction specs that are needed to build it and then reference any design plans that may be used.
Makes sense. And that's not easy.
No.
Yeah, so we'll see where that ends up. But I think there might be some that end up in the blue book.
Well, the pervious concrete obviously already is, and they were looking at possibly the curb cuts might be another example, or at least some of them may work on in the right of way. Others may only be appropriate for like parking lots and things like that. But.
Right, which would be private developer stuff. So, all right, just a thought.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Anybody else? Any new technologies or anything come up in your city that's worthy of discussing?
Hey, Craig.
Ryan.
Craig, yeah, I've got a quick question here. My inspections group has asked me to look into this with the MAG group, and maybe this discussion is better in one of the working group meetings. But the question has come up in MAG specification section 725 with regard to the placement of concrete. There's an option for allowing water to be placed to be added to the concrete on site at the engineer's discretion with their approval. So I guess the question that has come up is how cities are utilizing that MAG specification allowance. Are cities allowing for the addition of water on site? And if so, how are they determining when and how that's feasible. Is an inspector always on site when the concrete's placed, or how's that happen? So again, this may be more appropriate for one of the working group meetings for further discussion, but I wanted to at least get it out there. And if anyone has comments on it, I'd be happy to hear those.
Well, I can tell you that the time when I was actually in the field, I had a contractor who would talk to the drivers when they would come out and tell them, "Hey, I ordered a 4-inch slump. You know, if you're going to bring me a 3, then you're going to add the water as the driver, as the concrete company, because I ordered a specific slump, and that's what I'm paying for." So the contractor, this specific contractor, actually put that back on the concrete company and said, "If I ordered a 4, you sent a 3. I want a 4." So basically, it's not the contractor, and it's not the inspector, and it's not the engineer. It goes back to the supplier.
Hey, Craig, my more common thing is it comes out too dang wet. So adding water usually it's only happened to me typically when the truck stood by longer than possible, or there's a long standby on the truck. But I would love to get it wet and add a little water as opposed to have it so dang sloppy you can't use it. Anyway, that's my then I fell over.
So, but that's what I've seen, Ryan, in terms of adding water. I've never been a real proponent to add anything. You know, if it shows up on the side as a 3 and it's supposed to be a 4, well, pour it as a 3, because I don't want to take the chance of adding too much. Kind of a liability. I don't want to put a liability on myself. That's how I used to look at it. So that's just my 2 cents.
So let me weigh in here quickly. I think the section you're talking about, Ryan, is basically under 725 7.2. And it says additional water may be added on the job site in accordance with ASTM C94 tolerance and slump sections to adjust the slump, providing the slump after such water addition does not exceed the maximum allowed by these specifications in section 725.9. And that water so added is mixed into the batch for a minimum of 30 additional revolutions at mixing speed. So what it basically is trying to say, the case that Craig just talked about, if the truck shows up on the job and it's under the slump, it is applicable in ASTM C94 to add additional water to bring that mix up to the allowable slump on the mix design. Now, sometimes that's not what the contractor has ordered. So you have to go back to what was the mix design, original mix design scenario there. Of course, we get into the issue that Paul just mentioned. If the concrete's been on the job site for a period of time, as we all know, concrete is going to begin to hydrate. It's going to begin to do its thing, and that is going to reduce the workability of the concrete. So that's a whole nother situation. Once the concrete has been on the site for a period of time, I think you would be concerned about indiscriminately adding additional water to retemper it. That could affect the mix design, that could affect the concrete's performance ultimately, and that's not part of what 725 is talking about. It's basically talking about the arrival on the job site and the mix is a little bit drier than the mix design requirements, the allowance in C94, again, industry standard, of adding a little bit of water to bring it up to the workability of the mix design. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for your comments too.
You know, we would all wish that making concrete was like making a Swiss watch, where if we put all the same ingredients together and all the same parts together, that we got the same watch every time. But unfortunately, with ambient conditions and wind and humidities and temperatures and mixing characteristics of you know, it's just not a perfect world. That's just not going to happen. So there has to be a little bit of leeway in there to allow a little bit of an adjustment. Again, keeping in mind though, we don't want to give carte blanche to people to be indiscriminately adding water to concrete mixes, because then we get into that situation that Craig was talking about, where now we may be affecting the performance of the ultimate performance of the concrete. So I can see where a contractor could potentially put that back on the ready mix producer. I could also see where the contractor would not want to put that on the ready mix producer and leave that up to each individual driver to make his own decision as to what would happen. And I could also see where an engineer, a representative of the city agency would want to have some control over that too. It just kind of depends on what you're doing and you know, how critical it is and what the conditions are on the job site. Certainly, for me, Paul, I would agree with you 100%. I would rather have the concrete get there just a little bit drier, a little bit less workable than what I ordered, and allow me to put just a little water in it to make sure that I get exactly what I want, rather than have it get there and be too fluid, too wet, too high in water content. And now I got a problem trying to place what I was trying to do.
Right, and you know, if you're doing flat work and sidewalks and driveway pads and all that, maybe that's a little more critical than if you're doing a thrust block or a head wall or some other type of construction. I've had them add water to concrete numerous times on large projects and poured thrust blocks on 30-inch water lines with water added during the process, and I can't recall a failure. So it does apply to what you're doing, I believe.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Paul, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I believe that that's the end, unless anybody else has any questions, comments, concerns. Yeah. And with that, I believe, Gordon, we are adjourned.
Is there any, just before we all run, is there any indication of live meetings someday?
I still don't know when we're going to be able to start meeting it. I know it won't be next month. I'm just gonna have to wait and see how things play out, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. See ya. Good to see you guys.
See ya.
Thank you,
Same here,
everybody.
Paul. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for stepping